you.
Seem okay?
Yeah, the cup is in the way.
Cup is in the way.
But otherwise, it's good.
Okay, let's just to get a mic. We're gonna start on Daf. Is it Tzadik Beis we're up to?
Oh, because you have classes yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We'll start at the beginning of the parak. Tzadik Beis, 92. How's it going? Is there a class in Aventura for the Daf Yomi on Shabbos?
No.
You're gonna have to catch up. Okay, let's begin. We did the Mishnah yesterday. We'll start over. The Mishnah says, does everyone have it? 92? I don't know what 92. It's 92a.
Yeah, A2. Yes.
Dam chatas, the blood of the sin offering. Shenita zalabeged, that it's spritched onto the clothing of the kohen, or on any clothing. Harizaton kibas, you have to wash it off. It says so in the pasuk. It says that anything that touches the flesh is sanctified, and anything that the blood sprinkles and if the blood sprinkles on a garment, that has to be washed in a holy place.
Wow.
It means that's what the verse says. Now, when it says that verse is continuing on from where the flesh has to be eaten in a holy place. The flesh has to be eaten in a holy place,
Sure.
and the blood has to be washed in a holy place. Now, the pasuk is talking about sacrifices that are eaten, because the verse said it has to be eaten in a holy place, and it has to be washed. The garments need to be washed in a holy place. Shene'amar b'makom kadosh te'ochel, in a holy place it should be eaten, which means in the not in the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash. Now, even though it says that, echad hana'achalos v'echad ha'pnimius tunis kibas, doesn't matter. Even though it says that, but the halacha still applies to the inner sacrifices, inner chatas as well. Inner chatas means that the blood is not sprinkled on the outer altar, the blood is taken into the sanctuary and sprinkled there. Now the significance of that is the sacrifices that the blood is taken into the sanctuary are not eaten by the kohanim. The meat is not eaten, it's taken outside the Beis Hamikdash and burnt. So what the Mishnah is saying here is that even though the pasuk says that the blood that spritches onto a garment needs to be washed, that's referring to a chatas that's eaten, but the halacha also applies to a chatas that's burnt. And why is that? Shenemar, because it says in the pasuk, teras hachatas, the law of the chatas. Teirachas l'chol hachatais. It's one law for all the chatais. It means that we include everything into the same law. Just like, and since the law is that if the blood spritches on the garment by one chatas, it has to be washed. So too by all chatais it has to be washed. Follow? So it doesn't matter which chatas, which sin offering. Chatas psula.
This got dirty because
got dirty.
In the sprinkling or in the...
Right.
Petroleum. Sprayed onto
This blood.
I know of a sheikhet that was also a teacher. So he would, after finishing, they would check early in the morning when he would come back. So he would take a shower and go to teach. But he wouldn't wash the rim of it around his glasses. The students would always see red dots. Because he would wash his face and this. It's like one place that you forget to clean. And they used to have like thick glasses, like white plastic frames. So the students would see red dots over there. So,
story. Get off the start for a second. He was a shochet in Argentina. and he was the only one in town. This was a long time ago, and he was also a moil. So it was before Pesach. He was working like around the clock, and he had a bris in the morning, and he was so tired from where he got all dressed. He was in a big a building, so he got dressed. He went out to get in the elevator and had mirrors. He went to the elevator. He saw he was all dressed. He forgot to put on his pants. He was so tired. He just got all dressed to go out and go do a bris, and he didn't get finished with it.
Okay. Chatas psula. If the chatas is not valid,
Right, then
okay,
you go wash it. Then
so then, ein damatan kibas. Then you don't have to wash the garment in the holy place because it wasn't a valid offering. Now, why wasn't it valid? We'll see. Bein shaisel hashasa kosher. Whether it had a time that it was valid. Bein shaloi haisel hashasa kosher. Whether it had a time that it was never valid, it doesn't matter. In other words, whether it had potential to be a chatas and it got messed up at a later stage, you never need to wash the garment in the holy place. What is the case where it had potential? Shalana. It was left overnight. You didn't sprinkle it on the day that you were supposed to. So the following day you sprinkle it, and it goes on the garment, you don't have to wash it. Vishanitma, or it became impure. That means before it became impure, it was pure. So there was potential there for a valid set. Nevertheless, after it spritzes on the garment, because it was impure, you don't need to wash the garment in a holy place. Vishiyatzus, or the sacrifice was removed from the courtyard of the temple. It was taken out. Let's say, even if it was brought back in, it doesn't matter, it's already puzzle. So if that blood spritzes on the garment, you don't need to wash it in a holy place. What's the case that never had potential to being valid? At the very moment of its, when you were making this into a sacrifice, the beginning of its being a sacrifice, by the shechita, when it's slaughtered, already then he already had thoughts that he was going to sprinkle the blood or eat it outside of the allotted time, at a later time. So that invalidates the sacrifice right at the beginning. So the halach is that by then, if the blood from such a sacrifice spritzes on him, you don't need to wash the clothing in a holy place. Or he had thoughts at the time of the shechita that he was going to sprinkle the blood in the wrong place, or he was going to eat it in the wrong place. It's only supposed to be in the temple courtyard, and he had thoughts already then. So he messed up the sacrifice from the very beginning. So that the blood from such a sacrifice doesn't need to be washed off in the holy place. Or if people that were not supposed to receive the blood, which means someone that wasn't a kayan or someone that was tameh, receives the blood, that blood then doesn't need to be washed off the garments.
so he will wash it at home or
Yeah.
or
It's very similar to the laws here are similar to the laws of using vessels that weren't kosher. You have to, if you acquire a vessel that wasn't kosher, you have to kasher it. So here also, there's a garment. The same thing would apply if you had a vessel that a korban chatas was cooked in. It would need to be kashered. Why? Because the absorption goes into it, and it has one day to be valid. After that, it becomes nicer. It becomes leftover korban, which is forbidden to eat. So it becomes like a treif. So you would have to kasher it as well. So you have to kasher the utensils that we use. You have to wash the garments that came in contact. All right. I don't know if that makes it easier to follow, but it's
reversed.
something that you're familiar with.
This is the reverse. This is where the sprinkling is it's like it was just nothing.
Oh, when it's invalid, it's like
It's invalid. It's as if
Right.
it didn't sprinkle because you don't have to wash it. Well, you wash it, but not in a holy place. You still have to
Right.
wash it, though. No,
Doesn't
not
say.
necessarily.
Doesn't say.
No.
Okay.
It's reversed.
The Gemara says dam chatas. There's the next word in the Gemara says shemesa. However, the notes here on the side say that it has to be amended to shenitas. The blood of the chatas that was sprinkled. See, what the Gemara does is it quotes a word or two or three from the Mishnah and then it expounds on it. So the Gemara quotes these words, but the problem is those words aren't in the Mishnah, so it gets amended to match the Mishnah. The blood of the chatas that spritzed, janitas means it spritzed, etc. The Gemara asks, if there's one law for all chatas, remember we said that there's one law for all chatas, that means it doesn't matter if it's one that's eaten or one that's burnt, the same law applies, the blood needs to be washed off the garments. Afilu chatas oif nami, it should apply even to a bird chatas. Allah matanya, why was it taught in a braysa, yachal yedam chatas oif ton kibas? I could think it's possible that the blood of a chatas oif, a bird chatas, needs to be laundered, needs to be washed. Talmud Laimar Zois says no, this chatas needs to. So we're asking, if there's one law for all chatas, so why do you just exclude chatas oif? Amar Rish Lakish Mishum Bar Kapara. Rish Lakish says in the name of Bar Kapara, Amar Kra. It says in the pasuk, Tishachet. It says in the first verse, in the introductory verse of the Karban Chatas, it says, "Speak to Aaron and his son, saying, this is the law of the Chatas. In the place that the burnt offering is slaughtered, that's where the Chatas should be offered, should be slaughtered." You see, it says slaughtered. The chatas is slaughtered. We're talking about sacrifices that are slaughtered. Now, why would this exclude the bird? Because the bird uses the fingernail. It's not slaughtered. It's called malika. If you're going to start to get specific, then I'm going to look at other verses in this, and it says, in the place where the chatas is eaten, in the holy place the chatas should be eaten, so I'm going to say that it's only referring to chatas that's eaten. Aval pnimius lai, but the chatas that the blood is sprinkled inside the sanctuary, which is not eaten, the law doesn't apply. Maybe I would say that. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Rachmana Tairas. So there's a word that's an inclusive word. The word is Tairas, the law of. And that includes the inner ones. Ihachi, if you have a word that's inclusive, and you're including the chatas that's brought inside the sanctuary, afilu chatas oif nami, then let it include the bird. In other words, we have a problem here. We're including the inner the ones that are burnt. We're including them. They're called the inner chatais. And we're excluding birds. Why are we excluding birds? Because it says zois. It says this, which means only this one. And what's our excuse for using zois to exclude that? Because it says slaughtered. This is the place where the chatas is slaughtered. So that means we're only dealing with ones that are slaughtered, not birds. So we said if you're looking for something to exclude, so why are you excluding the bird? Maybe you should be excluding the inner chatas. You see, you have one word that's inclusive and one word that's excluding. So you chose one over the other. You're excluding one thing. The Gemara right away asks. Well, first it says Yachafil chatas nami miyat rachmana zois. No, it says zois. It says this. It's excluding. The Gemara asks, Umarisa mistabra. Umarisa, what do you see to exclude this and to include that? Maybe you should do it the opposite. Maybe you should include that and exclude this. Mistabra, it's more logical. The chatas behema pnimis habalila rebuye. That it should be including the animal sacrifice and excluding the birds. Why? Shekem behema. First of all, it's similar to the one that we're dealing with because it's both animals. Right. Also, shchita tzafin. And it's slaughtered on the north. By the bird is done on the altar, but it doesn't have that similarity. So we're going to use the similarities to say that this is the one that's more similar to it, and therefore the law should apply to the sacrifice, not to the bird. Kabbalas Keli. It's received in a vessel. By the bird, it's not received in a vessel, it's used the neck itself to sprinkle. The Keren. You're going to have to take a break in the middle. The Keren. And it's also put on the corner. The sacrifices are put on the corners, the shekayach, on the four corners of the altar, and also ve'etzba. It's used the finger. The finger is used as opposed to the bird, where the finger is not used. It's the neck of the bird that's used to sprinkle the blood. V'chuda, and it's put on the tip of the corner. It's where both walls meet. As opposed to the bird. The ishim, and the inners go on the fire. By the bird, that's not so. Okay. By the bird, everything goes to the kohen gets the whole thing. Okay, so the Gemara says 1 second. So I see you have a good comparison here. You're comparing the animals together. I'm on 92b. You're comparing the animals together, and therefore you're going to say that the law should apply to the animals, both animals, whether it's an inner the sacrifice the blood is put inside and it's burnt, or it's a sacrifice that the blood is outside and it's eaten. If the blood spritzes on the garment, you have to wash it, and not by the bird. The Gemara says immediately, Adarabba. On the contrary, Chata Soif Havalei L'Rabuyei. You should be including the Chata Soif, Shekain Chutz, because the blood is not brought in the sanctuary. Kamaisa, just like the sacrifice that you're talking about, where the blood is not brought in the sanctuary. So therefore, Chata Sa'if is more similar. The bird offering is more similar. The blood from the bird offering should have to be washed off the clothing. V'achila Kamaisa, and it's also eaten. Those are major things. It's eaten, so therefore the law should apply to both the bird and the outer chata sacrifice. Where it says hanach nefishin. This is more. The two chatais animals are more similar, and therefore, come sit over here maybe so you can share. And therefore, we're gonna compare the two sacrifices the two animal sacrifices have more similarities than the bird with the outer chatas.
This is all to get the thing laundered. Like that's what this is all about, to get the spritzes off your clothing in a holy place.
Just imagine the laundromat in Jerusalem studying these laws. Okay. We're up to Rabbi Yosef, which is 3 lines from the top. We didn't have... Who was saying this before? It wasn't a Babylonian Amira that was talking before. Now it's like Rabbi Yosef Amar. Before we had Rish Lakish was explaining this. Now we have Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef Amar. Rabbi Yosef says Amar Kra. The pasuk says Yechlena. Yechlena. He shall eat it. Yechlena is he shall eat it. It's literally her. He shall eat her. But it's a what's it called when you can't use a gender? It's but you have to say. But it's, you see, we don't have an it in Hebrew. We have it's either a male or a female, like in Spanish probably. Is there an it? You have to give it a gender. So because even nouns have a gender in Hebrew, and probably in Spanish also the nouns have. So the chatas would be a feminine. So therefore, Yochlena, you should eat it. You should eat her. It means it. Okay. So it is a singular. Lezu v'leila acheres. It's only this one, not a different one, not the other one. So you see, that's exclusive. It's excluding something. B'nei cholos. B'nei cholos miyeta kasuv. It's something that's eaten that is being excluded. That means that the bird, which is also eaten, is being excluded. The other one is not being excluded. The other chatas, which is brought inside, is not eaten. In other words, we have two chatas that are eaten. All the chatas eaten except for one type, except for the ones that are brought inside. But now we're dividing it. Two types of chatas that are eaten. One is the animal chatas, and one is the bird chatas that's eaten. We have to exclude one of them. So we're excluding the bird, and now the law of the blood that gets spritzed on the garment only applies to the animal chatas, not to the bird chatas. Okay, velo zeis lamali. So then, what do you do with the exclusion of this? It says zeis, which is this is the one. Ilav zeis. If it didn't say zeis, havamina, I would have thought yoichlena orcha dekra. I would have said that he eats it. That was just the normal way of talking. Kamash Malan, it says this to tell me that Yechlena is specific. You follow? I was like, you could think that that's just the normal way of saying it. You could say it, and you're referring to a bunch of things. What's it called when you have a you can have a noun that's also plural. Like you can speak about the people. The people. The people could be referring to the all the people, all the individuals, or it could be talking about like a nation, and it's referring to that one group of people, and then you would continue on saying he went or something, right? In Hebrew, you have it often with the word ha'am, the nation, and then afterwards it talks about it sometimes singular, sometimes plural, and so here also you could have said that Yechlena, he eats it, could be talking about the general group as an individual. Anyway, okay, don't know the grammar term, but that was Rabbi Yosef's view. Rabbah is the one that argues with Rabbi Yosef commonly. Rabbah and Rabbi Yosef. Rabbah was the Rosh Hashiva in Pumbedisa before Rabbi Yosef, I believe for 17 years or something, or 22 years maybe. Rabbah says Amar Kra. The pasuk says Asher Yazer, that he sprinkled. Ba'azoy is hakasif medaber. We're talking about only things that get sprinkled. Okay, now what does that tell me? That the chatas that goes outside on the outer altar is sprinkled. The chatas that goes on the inside, that's sprinkled on the curtain is also sprinkled. But what is not sprinkled is the bird. I'm not saying it's right. Let me do it different. Rabbah says that Asher Yazeh, this is Pasuk Gimel, anything that touches the flesh should be sanctified. That touches the flesh of the sacrifice is sanctified. Anything that's sprinkled from its blood on a garment has to be washed, which has to be washed in a holy place. So that term, it's sprinkled, that term is the term that we find by the inner sacrifices, the one that's burnt. So Rabbah's switching the Gemara around. We were saying the whole time that what is the verse referring to when it says it needs to be laundered? It's referring to the outer sacrifice that's eaten. Rabbah says actually it's referring to the inner sacrifice that's not eaten. And now the pasuk is going to come along and include the outer sacrifice. The Gemara asks right away, are you referring that the main verse here, the main discussion is referring to the inner sacrifice, where the blood sprinkled inside, which is burnt. V'ha Tanya, it's supposed to be divided, this word. Sometimes the Gemara combines, it contracts, right? Contracts the words. It's supposed to be divided. V'hatana, it's supposed to say. V'hatana, but it was taught in our Mishnah. Even though the pasuk is talking about the eaten ones, but nevertheless it's coming to include. It's good. Nevertheless, the ones that are burnt are included as well. What does that tell me? That we're talking about the outer sacrifice. It contradicts what Rabbah said. Rabbah said we're talking about the inner one that's not eaten. Here it's saying even though the pasuk is talking about the eaten one, we're going to include the not eaten one, the inner one as well. That doesn't fit with what Rabbah said. Rabbah said the main verse is talking about the one that's not eaten. So the Gemara continues, Linyan Mariko Shtifa. That's referring to the vessels, rinsing the vessels that cook the sacrifice. That obviously is referring to the eaten ones, because you don't cook the sacrifice that's burnt. Abalin kibus, but regarding laundering of the clothing, that doesn't have to do with the eaten, right? That blood could come from even the one that's burnt. Asher yazik siv. That's referring to the main discussion is the one that's burnt, the one that the blood is brought inside the sanctuary. Ihachi, the Gemara asks, if so, then we have to look back at the Mishnah. The Mishnah said whether it's eaten or whether it's brought inside the sanctuary, both of them require laundering. Now that order of whether it's eaten, whether it's brought into the sanctuary, tells me that the main discussion is regarding the ones that are eaten. Right? That's how it would say it. Whether it's eaten or whether it's not. But if the main discussion is when it's not, then you said it backwards. You said whether it's not, or even if you should have said even if it's eaten, right? It didn't do that. Whether it's eaten or whether it's the inner ones which are not eaten, it should have been the opposite. Whether it's the inner sacrifice, the blood that's brought inside, which is burnt, or whether it's eaten, it should have said. The Gemara responds, Tani for some reason the Gemara doesn't have any issue with adjusting the word order in the Mishnah. Just okay. Ihachi, if so, chata sa'if nami. What about the chata sa'if? The bird chatas. Maybe the same law should apply. So far, we've been saying the whole time that the blood from a bird does not need to be washed off the clothing, but the blood from the animals, whichever sacrifice does. So the Gemara says, Miyat Rachman Azais. No, there's an exclusion of the word this, because it says this, that's singular. So that's excluding the bird. Yachi Chitzaina Nami. What about the outer sacrifice, the one that's eaten? That should also be excluded, because we're referring to only the inner sacrifice that's burnt. That's the one that needs to be washed off the clothing. Also not. So Riba Rachmana Teiras. The Torah has an inclusion. The Riyat Rachmana, the Eberster, which in the Torah, the merciful one, includes using the word Torah or Teiras, the law of, that includes the outer sacrifice. Now the Gemara does exactly what it does before. Marisa, and what do you see to include this and exclude that? Maybe you should exclude that and include this. What do you see to include the outer sacrifice and to exclude the bird from laundering off the clothing? It says Mistabra, it's more logical. To include the animal sacrifice, shekain behema. First of all, it's in both an animal, whether it's the inner sacrifice, that means the blood is brought inside and it's burnt, or whether it's the outer one that's eaten. They're both the animals. Shchitas tzafin has to be shechted on the north, as opposed to the bird, which is on the altar, malika. Kabbalas keli, you have to use a utensil to catch the blood if it's an animal. By the bird, it was not put into a vessel, it was just held in the bird itself, in the neck of the bird, and it was sprinkled like that. V'keren, and it goes on the corner. Ve'etzba, and it's use your finger by the animals, as opposed to the bird where you use the body or the neck or the head. V'chuda, it has to be put on the corner where they connect the two walls, right? Exactly. V'ishim, and it goes on the fire, the limbs, the organs, as opposed to the bird, which does not. The Gemara says, 1 second, I get what you're doing here, but Adarab, on the contrary, you should include the bird sin offering. Why? Shekain hazah kamaisa. Because the bird, it uses the term hazah, which is the same. You see, now what we're doing here is we're switching from the inner one to be the main one, which it says the word term hazah, which it also says by the bird, the sprinkling from the body, not from a vessel. So the Gemara says hanach nefishin. The animal still has more similarities. So the majority wins. Since that has more similarities, so then the law would only be applied to the two types of animal sacrifices. The blood needs to be laundered off the clothing, but not the bird. Follow? Okay. We're going to have several questions here. Rather interesting questions that are brought up, and we try to prove in different ways. Boy, Rav Avin. Rav Avin has a question. It's interesting that when you go through this, you see how he's what brought it up, what made him think of this question. Something that we just mentioned. It brings up this question.
Stir the pot.
Yeah. Well, that's the unique thing of the Gemara, is that it's a record of conversation. So.
Is that Rav Avin? We haven't met him before, have we?
Well, I don't think we have. It's possible that Ravin may be Rabbi Avin. It's hard to know when the name is contracted. And for example, Rava, the Gra says that Rava is really Rabbi Ba. In the Yerushalmi, you have Rabbi Ba all the time, and but it's a contracted. Okay.